Hey, it's Tim.
And it's Amy from GoWithLess. We're glad you're here. In this video, we're doing a full recap of our 2022. We hope you watch the whole video.
We're going to cover a handful of things in this video, including every place that we visited in 2022. We're going to talk about our stats for the year. Where did we sleep? What states were we in? How many beds were we in? Things like that. And then we're going to wrap it up with how much money we spent in 2022.
Now, we are coming at you from Bali, Indonesia, and I have like beach hair don't care today, but look at the beauty behind us. We are just loving Asia, so lots of fun and excitement coming up in the next year, but we're taking a little peek back at 2022. We hope that you'll join us. One thing, I'm doing a lot of the narration because Tim has been hard at work doing a lot of the tech that you're gonna see. So all the maps and pie charts, that's all Tim. So thank you to Tim. I did the narration, so if you're like, what happened to Tim for the rest of the video? That's what happened to Tim. He was working behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
Our 2022 started as we ended a house sit in one of my favorite towns, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. We flew from Querétaro to Puerto Vallarta and had another house sit there. This was our first time to that charming town. Loved Puerto Vallarta. Very, very hot. Unfortunately, it was so expensive for us to stay for 2 months. We made our way instead to Guadalajara, Mexico, and rented a great Airbnb there in Colonia Americana. Guadalajara is the second largest city in Mexico, and there were 9 of us that spent 1 to 2 months in the same neighborhood. So we had a lot of fun with GoWithLess friends, and we're with them nearly every day. While we were there, we decided it made sense to get Mexico residency while we had a little time in one place, and we flew up to San Antonio, drove to Laredo, Texas, took care of our residency, came back to Guadalajara to finish it up, and we left with our permanent residency. We went to a house sit for good friends of ours in Tampa, Florida. Perfect time of the year, March, to be there. Clearwater Beach was absolutely gorgeous. And then we flew to Scottsdale for a repeat house sit with another beautiful season of weather, and off to New Orleans, where we met my mom and stepdad for French Quarterfest. If you love live music, if you love good food, then maybe consider New Orleans French Quarterfest, which is right before Jazz Fest. This was something to put maybe on a bucket list. We ended up in Fort Lauderdale, which is our repositioning to get onto a transatlantic cruise. This was our first transatlantic, trans-Pacific cruise, and we loved it. We had 2 different couples on the boat that were GoWithLess friends. We met a 4th couple, and the 8 of us spent a lot of time doing fun and trivia and seeing ports together. We weren't bored for an instant, and we had about a week at sea before we made any connection with land, and that was in the Canary Islands. We first stopped in La Palma, then to Tenerife. We sailed through the Strait of Gibraltar, no stopping there, and ended up in Valencia, Spain, Mallorca, an island in Spain, off of Spain, and our cruise stopped in Barcelona. Off we get to Sitges from Barcelona. We had a couple of fun days in Barcelona, but then off to a 3-week house sit in Sitges. We did a house sit for GoWithLess viewers who are now GoWithLess friends. That was the pug sit, if you've seen those cute pictures. And we enjoyed Sitges so much. It is at the Mediterranean, roughly 30 minutes outside of Barcelona. Highly recommend that area. We took the train back after 3 weeks to Barcelona and repositioned for another cruise, which was a Mediterranean cruise, our 2nd of the year. We started in Barcelona and ended in Barcelona along the way. We went to Sète and Toulon, France, Corsica, Mallorca, Ibiza, Cartagena, Valencia, Spain, and unfortunately I was quite sick during most of that cruise. I had a horrible cough, and I was tested for COVID at least 3 times, came back negative every time, but that was not such a great experience just because I was so sick. We left from Barcelona, flew to Gatwick, London, and took the bus over to Oxford, England. This was our very first time in Oxford, and it was for a trusted house sitter sit, an A++ sit for a dog that we just loved. Oxford is a gorgeous historic town that we are very excited to explore again. And then we took a train to another house sit, booked through Trusted House Sitters, up to Edinburgh, and it was over my birthday. We had very dear friends join us for the celebration of July, and had a really great way to have a birthday there in Scotland, our first trip to Scotland. And after that house sit was done, we flew back to Barcelona, where we ended up again in Sitges for another 3 weeks. And what was really cool, the same house sit, is that we saw a very different season of Sitges. So when we had left, it was kind of just starting to get their summertime going, but we came back in roughly early August, and it was really heating up. Actually, I think it was the middle of July. Really, really heating up, and lots of people, lots of liveliness. The beaches were really nicely crowded. The water was really nice and warm. So really kind of cool to see the Mediterranean at two such different times of the year. We said goodbye to Barcelona and flew back again to England. We needed to get up to England and out of the Schengen zone because we were at 89 days in the Schengen zone this year. So we were starting the first of 3 cruises. After our flight to Gatwick, we took the train over to Dover and got on a Carnival cruise ship for the first of 3 consecutive cruises. We have a video all about those, not only the 3 cruises, but all of the ports that we stopped at along the way and what we liked and where we wanted to go back to again. So hopefully you'll check that video out after this is done. The first cruise was a British Isles cruise, and we toured Holyhead, Wales, Glasgow, Scotland, Belfast, Northern Ireland, Liverpool, England, Dublin, and Cork, Ireland, before we docked in Dover. Later that day, we set off for a tour of Northern Europe. Our first stop from Dover was to Copenhagen, to Warnemünde, I'm butchering the German, I'm guessing, Tallinn, Estonia, Helsinki, Finland. We were supposed to visit Stockholm, Sweden, but weather made us miss that stop, and instead we went off to Kiel, Germany, Gothenburg, Sweden, and ended in Dover. Cruise number 3 was a repositioning. It started in Dover, ended up going to Le Havre, France, to La Coruña, Spain, to Porto and Lisbon, Portugal, to Cadiz, Spain, again through the Strait of Gibraltar, Cartagena, and Civitavecchia, Rome, near Rome, a port outside of Rome, and we had a really fun day in Rome. Very, very hot. This was September the 11th, I believe it was, and it was hot hot, but really beautiful. We just love Rome and Italy. Okay, we flew, after only one day in Rome, we flew to Arlington, Washington, D.C. for another house sit for viewers who are friends. We really love spending time there. My dad and stepmom live in Washington, D.C., so we do spend a lot of time in that area, and this was a great neighborhood. We have a lot of GoWithLess friends there too, which was really, really fun to see so many friends that have a lot of social plans. So after our 3-week Washington, D.C. sit, we flew to Charlotte to see my mom and stepdad. We took the 2 of them with me and Tim, and we drove to Charleston, South Carolina. We had just 2 nights for a little vacation, a beautiful city, back to Charlotte, and then we flew to Denver. This was in early October. We were in Denver for about a week, visiting our children and friends and things like that. And we flew back down again to Mexico. We made a stop in Dallas at Dallas Airport, and at the fantastic Capital One Venture X Lounge, one of our favorite lounges in the country. And after Querétaro, a stop in Querétaro, we went directly to SMA, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, for the 3rd time house sitting for this wonderful family. And unfortunately, we got the bad news that Tim's mom passed away suddenly, and we needed to get out of Mexico very fast. So we flew up in early November back to Dallas and drove to East Texas, where we were for close to 2 months. We ended up going up to Denver over Thanksgiving for a few nights to take care of our safe deposit box. It was closing, so we had to close that out, the bank. deposit box and go get another one and head back to East Texas all the way through Christmas. Unfortunately, I had a death in my family and we had to fly up after Texas to Pittsburgh for one night. After that, we went with my dad and stepmom. We drove from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C., stayed in their home for one night, got on a flight back to Querétaro because we had left our stuff in San Miguel and needed to pick that up. And we ended up in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico at 11:15 on New Year's Eve. That was it. That was a big 2022. Section number 2 is a whole bunch of fun facts and figures about our year. And slide number 1 is where we spent time, like what kind of accommodations we had. The lion's share was at house sits. We had 10 of them, 170 days, 46.6% of our year. Something interesting is 7 of those were new house sits, but 3 of those were repeats. Now, we're usually invited back to a house sit, but our dates don't line up. So it was really nice when these lined up to be able to go back. We love to go to something very familiar, the home, the pets, the owner. It's just a nice situation. So when it does line up, we really do appreciate that. Okay, next is Airbnb, and it is only one, and it is in air quotes because we only got it for 3 nights and then negotiated for roughly a 2-month stay with our Guadalajara host in Mexico. That was 54 nights or 14.8%. Airbnb in Mexico, as far as I could tell, charges upwards of 30% fees and taxes. We're not keen on doing that, so we did pay in cash. That does leave us some liability and some concern for the owner as well, but it did work out really great, and we did get to save quite a bit of money. Okay, the next category is cruises. We had 5 of those, 52 nights, 14.2%. We've already chatted about that quite a bit. And then the next longest stay was at Tim's mom's house, handling her affairs at the end of the year. That was 49 nights or 13.4%. We stayed in 15 different hotels, which is 24 nights, 6.6%. And all but one of those hotels, 14 of those hotels, were only for 1 or 2 nights. One of them was for 6 nights while we were in Denver. So really, we're using hotels as kind of just like a transiting kind of a thing to get to an airport early before a flight, things like that, or before a house sit. We'll do a lot of hotels, just 1 or 2 nights, just for that kind of thing. Okay, and the last category here is with friends and family. 5 friends and family stays, 16 nights, 4.4%. Now, a little bit about that is 4 of those 5 stays were from 1 to 4 nights, so nothing too excessive. And then the one that was the outlier was a 7-night stay in New Orleans at a friend's home, and she wasn't there. So we were very sensitive to not be out, not wearing out our welcome, I guess. And that was our time in friends and family's homes. 365 nights. There you go. The next slide is where were we in the world? We had 231 days outside of the United States. That's terrific because our health insurance requires that we spend at least 180 days outside, so that was more than compliant. And the lion's share on this slide was in Mexico, 95 days in Mexico. We absolutely love it there. Next was 62 days in Spain. That included time not only at our house sit, but also we had several days in Barcelona. We had days on our cruise. Several of our cruises had Spain stops. The next was the United Kingdom. That was not only our 2 house sits, but also our cruises. We took a British Isles cruise. Okay, surprising almost. 18 nights were at sea, so we never got off the boat at all for 18 of those nights. And then the others are just kind of small, and they're just ports on our cruise. So France, Germany each had 2 nights. Ireland had 2 nights. Portugal had 2 days, I should say, and so on. So just 1 or 2 days in each one of these other countries that you see. Okay, then next is 134 days in the United States. The biggest state that we spent time in was Texas. That was because of Tim's mom's home. But then also we had a couple days while we were taking care of our Mexican residency, followed by Arizona for 20 nights. That was fully for a house sit. I think the entire thing was at a house sit, not even any hotel nights. And then same with Florida for 19 days, plus a couple nights for Fort Lauderdale before a cruise. We had 18 days in Virginia. That was another house sit. And 9 days in Colorado. That was both our stay in the summer, just a visit, plus over Thanksgiving to deal with our safe deposit box. And then 7 in Louisiana at our friend's home. And then the rest were just 1 or 2, 3 nights, just a couple days in the North Carolina, South Carolina, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania. Okay, so something just kind of fun is how many unique beds we had. 35 unique beds in 2022. Something, just a fun little figure that we like to track. Okay, let's talk all about our spending for 2022. If you've been with us for a while watching our spending videos, you may be kind of in the know that we got in the hole early in the year, in January. Against our target of $48,000, we were over $4,000 in January, again in February, again in March. Were we ever going to get out of it? We're going to show you today. Okay. If you are, by the way, interested in the breakout of what did we spend every single month, we have all kinds of videos. We have 10 videos sharing all of our spending, both monthly from January through September gets a monthly video, and then October, November, December gets a Q4 one big video. And I'm going to put a playlist at the end of this video to have you go there if you're interested in seeing the breakdown of everything, because we talk all about it. Okay, let's start with category number 1, food. Tim likes to say that when food is the number 1 category, that we are doing it right. And it is for the whole year, our number 1 category. $13,129 or 26% of our budget. That works out to $1,094 average on food. That is all food, groceries, dining out, everything. 2, health and personal care. That includes our health insurance, $9,606 or 19%. That was $801 on average per month. It also includes Tim's Mohs surgery for skin cancer on his face. There was a sizable chunk there. Number 3, accommodations. That's $9,414 or 19%. Equaling $785 on average a month. Transportation in number 4 is $9,078 or 18%, which is $757 a month on average. Category number 5, shopping, $4,413 or 9% of our total annual spending, $368 average monthly spending on shopping. Category number 6 is miscellaneous, $2,985 or 6%. That is $249 on average per month. Category number 7, entertainment, $1,445, 3% of our total spend, or $120 per month on average. Number 8, internet and phone, $673 or just 1% of our spending, which is $56 on average per month for both of us, internet and phone. And last, taxes in category number 9, $41 for our personal taxes, which is 0.1%. Technically, that rounds down to 0, but we wanted to show that there is something there. It's not 0. If it rounded down, it's 0%, but it is technically 0.1%. We love that. On average, we spend $3 a month on our average monthly taxes. Certainly, our residency in Texas with its no state income tax helps that number. There's our 100%. And what that equals is $50,000, $784 for the year. We're going to talk a little bit about how we feel about that. Okay, our $50,784 of spending in 2022 means we were at 105.8% of our $48,000 annual target. Tim, what are you thinking? We were a little over budget.
I think that's phenomenal, only being 6% over when you consider this amazing year that we had, when you consider inflation, when you consider that we prepaid for a lot of things that are happening in 2023. I just think we did great. So I'm very happy with what we did. So some of the things we prepaid for that are happening now, we include a Trans-Pacific 14-day cruise on Holland America, a 12-day transatlantic cruise on Norwegian. That particular cruise, we even have the tips paid for, prepaid last year. We have a Kyoto hotel for 5 nights that we paid cash for last year. We also have a Porto Airbnb 4 nights that we prepaid last year. And we have 5 flights that we're taking in Asia. So I'm amazed. I think we did great.
I do too. And those 5 Asia flights are often on low-cost carriers. But when you consider that it's 2 people going with checked baggage, that means that those add up when you look at them all together, right?
Yeah, the flights are relatively cheap, but when you look at them in aggregate, it was a good chunk of money that we paid last year.
That's right. So I'm going to finish up with some of the biggies that took up big chunks of that budget. First, I mentioned Tim's Mohs surgery. He had skin cancer on his cheek, and that was quite expensive. Tim also bought a new iPad this past year in 2022. I had a CPAP machine that was over $1,000. We got permanent residency in Mexico with the assistance of a lawyer. That was in the spending of 2022. Our health insurance, which, P.S., we had 0 claims filed. We are thrilled that we didn't have any major issues with our health, but the things that we did have issues with weren't covered at all. It's really just for catastrophic things. And then, of course, as people who are really into award travel and points and miles, we have lots and lots and lots of credit card annual fees. So I'm feeling pretty good about that as well. Good job, honey.
Yeah, same to you. Great job.
Woo! What a 2022 we had.
Yeah, a bit of a crazy, hectic year. This was really the first year that we feel like we're sort of living our nomadic life. And then obviously when my mom passed in November, our life changed dramatically. And so we had to sort of figure that out. And we're still working through all the logistics of that. But we're now that we're here in Asia, so we're sort of back at our nomadic life and trying to figure out how we move forward with this, and we're excited to be in this new chapter of our life.
Yeah, and we're actually just started year 4 of our nomadic life. So all 4 years, so we've had a nomadic life. It just wasn't the nomadic life that we had planned out of the country.
COVID put such a damper on everything in our life, and now we're kind of free, we felt.
Yeah, so we still had a nomadic life for the past 3 years. Last year was just where we got to really spread our wings and go abroad.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what I want to know from you is, how did your 2022 turn out spending-wise? What do you have on the radar for 2023? And then a couple teasers. We're going to be coming out with a video at some point that says what our target spending is for 2023. We may be doing a little bit of short content about some of our feelings about Bangkok, where we have just been, about Kuala Lumpur, where we just spent a month. Here we are again in Bali, Indonesia, which I'm just going to give a teaser, a spoiler. It is heaven on earth. So we're going to chat a little bit about these things coming up. So we hope you'll subscribe. We'll see you around. Check you out in the Facebook group. Hasta luego.
Adios.